when I was reading it, I was really fascinated by the way you entertain us with the journey of Mark Watney. He has his own entertainment desperately, seems like, after a very hardworking day, listening to disco, watching bad TV. Is it an important element on helping Mark Watney to survive, or was it to rather help us, the readers, to survive reading the whole book?
So the disco thing, it had a few purposes. First off, it's a funny running joke. It makes the reader laugh, right? Second off, so much of the story takes place on Mars that the reader could easily forget that this is supposed to be happening kind of now, right? It's supposed to be happening in, closer to the present than to some distant, far-off future. And I wanted them to keep track of that. I wanted it to feel like this is now. And so constantly having these throwback TV shows, disco, he mentions Wikipedia, he has a laptop, he talks about Amazon. There's a lot of product names in there that I put there because it brings it back to you thinking, oh, this is now, it's somewhere else, but it's not some when else.
Gentlemen, why don't you tell
That's
the
kind of why
viewers
the
what's
disco
cooking?
and the 70s stuff is there.
Yolk, something. Chewy.
And you, Herr Vogel?
Sausage?
German?
Wurst.
It's awesome.
Do you think scientifically, for us to get into that kind of long space or planetary mission, human would need a minimum amount of entertainment so that our psychological balance can be maintained?
Well, that would make it more pleasant for the humans. Given a large population of humans, they'll find their own entertainment. They'll make their own entertainment. They'll have their own writers. They'll have their own dancers. They'll have their own musicians, So this of a small group of people going off and living somewhere else is not new. Humans have been doing this for a long, long time. So the psychology works itself out, clearly, or we would still be all living in the Fertile Crescent, right?
Right. I was just wondering, isn't it enough to be already in a very new place and discovering everything?
I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so. I don't think that's enough.
That's great.
Because it would become just daily life. If you imagine your first day on Mars, you're like, wow. Your 700th day on Mars, you're like, I live here.
Do you think there's a possibility that some of the innovations that could come from a city on Mars, like everyday human innovation, could have repercussions on Earth too and inspire people and solutions there?
Possibly. So there are a bunch of special challenges for Mars. The biggest one is maintaining pressure. There are a bunch of kind of advantages to Mars also in that there will be no pathogens. Sorry to be a downer, but I believe there's no life on Mars. So the only pathogens you would have on your base are whatever you brought with you. Now, on Earth, we have an entire planet of biosphere to generate new pathogens that cause problems for us year after year. But on Mars, it would just be your own little agricultural areas. And so you wouldn't have much in the way of pathogens. So that'd be like a problem you don't have to deal with. Also, with your completely, totally controlled environment, you would have the optimal situation for your crops. So lacking pathogens and having the perfect temperature and amounts of light and amounts of water for your crops means you would have no blights, no famines, no crop failures, as long as you maintain your outer infrastructure.
18 souls into a 31 soul mission, which means we've got 13 souls worth of experiment and research left.
In terms of inventing things that help like the rest of mankind, I think it would be just like any other location that has a bunch of humans in it. It's like, well, what has the city of Chicago done for mankind? I don't know, but if I look it up, I bet you I can find a bunch of scientific advances that were done by people in Chicago or people who were raised in Chicago. It's a location for mankind to exist.
In your story, Mark Watney had to survive and grow his own food, investing in his own dirt for the potatoes to grow. There are germs and bacteria involved. What is your perspective about the planetary protection concern, and how important is it to look for life more than to try to put life on Mars?
There were a couple of questions in there. First off, germs and stuff, like within the context of the book, Mark Watney uses his own feces as fertilizer to grow the potatoes. Normally that's a bad idea to do with a human population because it means all of your, well, no, it's really not. I mean, You don't mind using cow shit to fertilize your crops. Why not human shit? Well, because human feces has human pathogens in it, and then other humans can catch those pathogens. For the most part, we are not susceptible to cow pathogens, and cows aren't susceptible to ours. So the problem with using it's actually a really old concept. It's called night soil, is a very nice way of putting it. It means human fertilizer. And it was fine for Mark because he already has all the pathogens that are in his body. So exchanging pathogens with himself doesn't matter. He's already immune to any pathogens that are in his body. So that just answers that kind of first question that you might think of. Now, in terms of planetary protection, if you're going to have a manned mission to Mars, you have to abandon any hope of planetary protection in that region. So you can define a safe zone and say like, okay, here's a 100-kilometer area where we're just not even gonna bother. And which you really can't, because humans are just life-emitting things. I mean, skin cells fall off. We've got bacteria in our body, anything we leave behind, if we touch something and bring it outside, now we've added bacteria. It's just not possible to have humans on a place and not riddle it with Earth-born life. Two things I'll say to that. I don't know, like, aside from super duper extremophiles like tardigrades, we haven't found any Earth life that can survive for anything remotely resembling a long time on the surface of Mars. It's like most of it just dies immediately. And the stuff that doesn't die immediately dies a little bit later when it freezes. And the stuff that somehow can handle the temperature and the low pressure, if it is somehow able to survive that, then it dies from the radiation. So it's just like, there's just nothing, there's almost nothing from Earth that can survive on Mars. And also, I believe, and I acknowledge this is sort of a controversial, stance, I am almost certain there is no native life on Mars. I'm pretty sure that Mars is a completely dead wasteland and has always been, just like the moon. And so I think planetary protection of Mars is a waste of resources. I think it's not worth trying to protect it. It's like, it's as silly as planetary protection for the moon. And now your follow-up question will be like, why are you so certain there's no life on Mars? What makes you think that? Well, let's say you're an alien and you're investigating Earth and you want to find out if Earth has life. And you have no idea what Earth looks like, what Earth life might look like. You don't even know. You're a cloud of super intelligent gas, so you can't identify immediately what Earth life would look like. Well, let's say you grabbed a sample this big, like one liter from anywhere on the planet, anywhere. Just grab it out of the middle of the atmosphere, out of the ocean, out of the dirt, Sahara Desert, Antarctica, mouth of a volcano, whatever. If you grab that and you look at it, it's riddled with life. There is life everywhere. There's cells, like monocellular life. This whole planet is completely covered in life because that's how life is. It's good at slowly evolving to figure out through evolution how to survive in all of the possible environments. Now, we've gone to Mars and we've had numerous probes look for life and they found nothing. We found no evidence of macroscopic, indications that biological processor is going on anywhere. And we've also found no evidence of fossilized life from earlier eras when Mars had liquid water. Like, I've got to believe, if you took Earth and killed everything on Earth and then drained the oceans, there would still be an enormous amount of evidence that there used to be life here. And even if Mars had never developed anything larger than monocellular organisms, we would still be able to see that it existed. So obviously this is like, a lot of people would disagree with me on this, but I am almost certain that there's no native life on Mars, and so planetary protection just serves as an impediment to our eventual colonization.
So no green man pyramids or faces of Mars?
Nope.
I'm very relieved to hear that, because I'm super excited about seeing, watching the film based on your book.
I don't mind giving you this spoiler. There is no life on Mars in the book.
Yeah.
Other than human.
How come Aquaman can control whales? I mean, whales are mammals. Doesn't even make sense.